Hey, is your Honda dirt bike carb leaking gas out of the overflow hose? So when you turn the petcock on, here's the float bowl and it's just leaking gas out of this overflow hose. Well, there's a few problems and I want to explain why it's happening and how you can fix it for free or really cheap. This could be on a CRF250R, 250X, CRF450R, or 450X. Anyone with a carburetor, they all have the same Keihin FCR MX carb. So the first thing I check is take the float bowl off, and I like to check the float needle. So pull this pin out. You may need to poke it with something small to push it out. Then you can pull the float out. Then you can take the needle off of the tab here, and then take a good look at the needle itself. Two things that I look for. Number one, does it have a groove in it? What I mean by groove, it'll have a ring that you can see or feel with your nail. This is just from normal wear because it's pushing against the seat in there. It's constantly opening and closing, going back and forth, and over time they can cause a ridge in there, and that can cause it to leak past it because it's not properly sealing. I don't see that too often, but if that's the case, you want to replace just the needle. Otherwise, you want to look for specks of dirt or debris or junk on the needle itself, because all it takes is one tiny speck of dirt or crud from the fuel or the carb to get it stuck in between the needle here and the seat, causing it to leak fuel out of the overflow. If this needle is occasionally, intermittently getting junk on it, it's going to intermittently run rich. So it's going to start to idle rough. It probably will idle lower. It'll start to blubber and sputter at low RPM before it kind of clears out. That's a sign that it's running rich. It's getting too much fuel. And if you want to know 6 alarming signs that your dirt bike is running too rich or too lean, you should grab my free guide. The link is in the description below. And sometimes just riding the bike can allow that dirt and debris to just flush out of the system and fix itself. Sometimes you can even blow some compressed air into this overflow hose, and it'll push the needle up into the seat and help clear out that debris. But if it's really bad or it's stuck on there, you will need to take the float bowl off at minimum, which you don't need to remove the carb from the bike. In most cases, you can just spin it around in the carb clamps. And if this is clean, it's not worn out, and the next thing I move on to is the seat itself. Sometimes there's junk or corrosion on this brass seat. So what you can do, there's a couple things. You can take a Q-tip, get some cleaner. You can just use hot soap and water. Put it on the Q-tip, spin it with your hand, or even faster is stick it in a hand drill and just spin it in there and just kind of go in and out and work your way around to try and get any junk out of there. You're basically just polishing that seat so that no junk or debris or edges are on it. You can also put a piece of Scotch-Brite on something, stick it in there on a drill, and just lightly polish the seat on there. You want to be careful not to remove material or very little, otherwise that can ruin the seat and you'll have to replace it. Which moves on to the next thing is this seat is removable, and there's actually an O-ring in there. So if you know that the needle is good, it's clean, and the seat is good and it's clean, then you just take this screw off. Sometimes they're tight on there, so you want to push hard when you're loosening it. And it probably needs some pliers, and you want to gently remove this seat. There we go, pulled it out. Alright, you see this O-ring right here on the seat itself. If this O-ring is hard or cracked or just shriveled up and old, fuel's just going to leak right past it. So when you turn the petcock on, even if the float is closing and sealing properly on here, it's going to be leaking past here if this is old, cracked, worn out. And I can see that I wasn't careful enough on this. I bent this right here, so you just want to be extra careful when doing that. So you want to replace this O-ring, and that should fix the leaking gas. However, there is one more thing, and that is when it's leaking gas out of the overflow, when the bike is slightly leaned over. Maybe you have a kickstand on your bike and it only leaks out of the overflow when it's leaning over. That is likely the float height. So you want to change the float height. It's too high. Too much gas is in the float bowl, so when it tips over, or when it leans over just a little bit, it's going to be covering this, which is the overflow tube going out the overflow. So you want to lower that float height to the proper spec so that it's not leaking out of that overflow hose. However, if you get it fixed by cleaning the carb and it runs great, and then maybe a couple rides later, or maybe even 10-15 minutes later, it starts to run poorly again, the carb is dirty, you might have a problem with your fuel system or the fuel tank due to poor quality gas. And if you want to know how to avoid ever cleaning your carb again, you should check out this video right here, because I hate cleaning carbs. It's a mess and it takes forever, especially on these aluminum frame bikes where you basically have to take almost half of the bike apart just to pull this off. You should check out this video or subscribe if it's not already out. I'm Kelly Fagan from MX Hideout. Ride safe, have fun.